ahead to preparations that are underway now for the services, the celebration of life ceremony that is going to be taking place in Charleston for General Chuck Yeager. You want to talk about someone with a long resume, accolades, awards galore? It's Chuck Yeager, and we are going to be talking about him extensively here on WSAZ. When we talk about Chuck Yeager, he is a West Virginia native. He was a United States Air Force officer, a flying ace, a record-setting test pilot, and in 1947, Chuck Yeager became the first pilot in history confirmed to have broken the sound barrier. He is considered to be one of the greatest pilots of all time. Talk about a legacy and a lasting impact. Chuck Yeager, though, died in December at 97 years old. He was born in Myra, West Virginia, and when he was young, his family then moved to Hamlin. He was living in California at the time of his death, but as you travel across West Virginia, you are going to notice so many things, so many areas named after him, bridges named after him. Think about it, even at Marshall University, the Yeager Scholar Program. Yeager, though, went to high school at Hamlin High School, and then the second he graduated, right after he graduated, he enlisted in the Air Force. And on Friday, there is going to be that celebration of life ceremony that will take place in Charleston at the Coliseum and Convention Center to honor the life and the legacy of General Yeager. We talk about his resume in the air. It was lengthy. So many knew of his awards, so many knew of his accolades, but others knew him personally. And we want to talk to some of those people here at the WSAZ Now Desk. One of them, as we pull up here, is Gary Yeager. I noticed behind you, you actually have an interesting setup here, even just for this interview, Gary. But you're one of General Yeager's relatives. You have had several encounters with him. You know him well. And you even said he was instrumental in your role in the Air Force. So I want to talk to you. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you. And I know you've taken the time to talk with us. It means a lot to us. And you have a big perspective on General Yeager. I want to talk to you about some of those fond memories that you have. You and I talked for a while on the phone about some of those, but you told me a story, and it stood out to me, about the very first time you met him. And you said that you were a young boy, and you used the word towering when we were talking about General Yeager. Talk to me about some of those fond memories that you have.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Taylor. This is an honor. This is an honor to even be able to just talk about some accolades that he has and my experience with him. As I said, it was way back in the 50s, and I'm sure they still have it, but this particular incident was in the 50s, where I was a young kid, and my dad, mom, and my brother, we all went to the Yeager reunion, which was a very big to-do in the Yeager family. And it was held at Coonskin Park over at the by Charleston Airport, now the Kanawha Airport, now Yeager Airport. But I remember just walking around there, visiting cousins that I had never met, Dad introducing me and things like that. And all of a sudden, a T-33 jet come flying over, laying the trees over on their side. And somebody says, "Oh, that's Chuck." And I remember my dad says, "Oh, yeah, that's him." And he had been flying in from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where he was involved in the testing of airplanes, and that was the main mission of Wright-Patterson. And he came in on a Saturday afternoon, laying the trees over. He'd do like an air show to some of us. It was a solo air show, doing some rolls and going inverted a couple of times, and then he was gone. And then on Sunday, he would fly over in some sort of propeller-driven airplane, because Charleston, at that time, Yeager Airport, Kanawha, didn't have the facilities for an Air Force jet engine or any other things like that. Probably didn't even have jet fuel. But he would come over, and we'd go down, and he would come over to the reunion and walk around. And I remember one time when I was introduced to him, he was the most towering man that I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, now, I mean, since I've met him in later life, he really wasn't that tall. And I don't think that I was really that short. I think it was just the honor of meeting him and hearing the stories that I heard all my life that most West Virginians or anybody else outside the family or even outside the Air Force had ever heard. And it was just, he shook my hand and patted me on the head and went on about meeting some other people in the family. And that moment was a moment in my life that I think has been monumental. I mean, it has provided me more motivation. I mean, I was too an Air Force pilot. I went to the pilot training. I went to Air Force officer training school, and it was difficult. There was a legacy there that you have to. Oh, that's Chuck Yeager's cousin. That's Chuck Yeager's, and I even got to the point where they were calling me Chuck Yeager's son, but I straightened that up in a hurry. But nevertheless, it provided me a lot of motivation all through my life, and I think today I am a bit sad, but still the legacy provides motivation, and even in later life. And thank you for asking about that. That's something that I haven't shared with a lot of people.
Well, and Gary, when you and I were talking, and you mentioned your time in the Air Force, and I know you said that was a very difficult time, and just to try to make it was difficult in itself when we're talking about the Air Force. But you said that you had conversations with General Yeager. I believe what you even told me that you hopped in a car at one point and drove from Florida to West Virginia to be able to have a conversation with him about that.
Yes. Yes. When I'm a Marshall graduate, 1971. I'm a Marshall graduate. And I was in the process. I wanted to get into the Air Force. I wanted to be a pilot. I always wanted to be a pilot. And I knew I had to be a college graduate. So that was kind of motivation. And I was down in Florida. I had accepted a coaching job because I played football and baseball and in college and everything. And I had gone down to Florida to interview for a coaching job, and my mother had been a real good friends with General Yeager's mother, and they talked every couple of weeks, and it was Mrs. Yeager, Mrs. Yeager. They would refer to each other as Mrs. Yeager, and it's kind of comical to listen to, but she had talked to him, and she called me down in Florida at the hotel I was staying at while I was interviewing for this coaching job. And she called me, and she was just excited. She says, "You need to come home." I said, "What's going on?" She says, "General Yeager," or at this time, she said, "Chuck Yeager is going to be in Hamlin over the next week or so visiting with his mom." And so I immediately jumped in my car and told the other two interviews that I would have to postpone them. And I drove back to Hamlin to visit with the general and sit there and tell him what my desires were to get into the Air Force. And we had a conversation. It lasted about 3 hours in Hamlin, West Virginia, on his front porch, on his mom's front porch, talking about everything from how difficult the F-4 would turn in a fight, how the F-4 would go straight up like a bullet, and we even talked about the X-1 flight, where he would give me the aeronautical reasons for the so-called flying tail, and so all those different things. I mean, we sat there and we talked about how comfortable the Martin Baker ejection seat was, and he was a whole hour on how that thing was so uncomfortable, and how he would have to pack 2 parachutes on his bottom so it wouldn't be so uncomfortable. But I drove, and like I said, this was a very difficult time to get into the Air Force, especially pilot training, because it was a reduction in force at the time, and everybody was kind of leaving the Air Force. They were being forced out because they had too many pilots and too many bases and too many airplanes and everything else. But somehow over the next couple of years, I got a slot in pilot training, and I was one of 25 people to get a slot. And it was a reserve base. And so the general somehow told me he would write a letter, or he said, I'll make a phone call. And, I never thought any more about it. And then 2 years later, I get this call, and 6 months later, I'm in San Antonio in officer training school, flying little airplanes. And then 6 months later after that, I'm in Texas flying jets. So, yeah, I'm really thankful to General Yeager, just on a 3-hour conversation on his mama's front porch. That's one of my big memories.
Gary, I say it seems like a lifelong dedication to service is something that runs in that Yeager family name, because I've had the pleasure of meeting your dad, Claude Yeager, and I said I even had the chance to do a story about him recently and his dedication to West Virginia. And you talk about humble beginnings. Same goes with General Yeager. We talk about him growing up in Hamlin, in Lincoln County, your dad in Logan County, and I was so honored to be able to tell his story about likely being the oldest full-service gas station attendant still around in Logan County. And, you said it seems like this is something that just is in the genes. It runs in the family. Talk about that.
Yes, I think I think it does. I think it's just the golden rule. It's the golden rule. Do unto others before they do unto you. But it's as you would have them do unto you. But, for the most part, my daughter is a captain in the Air Force. She's not a pilot. She said she didn't want to be a pilot. She says, because pilots get deployed and everything else, she says, I just want to support the base. So she is she's been an admin officer. She's been deployed several times. She's been executive officer of several bases. And yeah, she has a Yeager legacy, and she is very proud to be a Yeager. And matter of fact, when she promoted to captain, she got a text, an email, or I think it was a messenger, from General Yeager saying, "Congratulations, Captain Yeager. I remember when I was promoted that it was Jimmy Doolittle who had pinned my medal on, who pinned my bars on as a captain, and and Katie was being deployed. She was in Honduras being deployed when she pinned hers on, and it was something that she was very proud of, that the general recognized her as being another link into the chain of Air Force for the Yeager family. And again, it's just a matter of service. It's just, you think then you belong. And I've never thought of any other thing other than just the Yeager name. There's a T-shirt that somebody bought me once upon a time, it's I'm sure it's just a kind of a joke T-shirt, but all it says is, it's a Yeager thing you wouldn't understand. And I was going to wear it for this interview, and I couldn't find it. I don't know where it's at, but that's just a name. That's just a name. It's a family, and there's so many of us. And I've done the genealogy on it, and I've gone back and I've noticed my my great grandfather and the general's grandfather were brothers, and which makes my dad's grandfather and general's. And one of my last trips into Logan, and I went down to Lincoln County to the Franklin Cemetery, where General Yeager's grandfather, he in a book refers to him as Grandpa Yeager, but I went down there. My grandfather's buried there. his grandfather's buried there, and it's just all in this one big cemetery. And I saw so many of my relatives, and I know most of the people in West Virginia know that Steve Yeager, the Dodgers catcher, his grandfather's buried there, and we're all from this same little. I tell people we're all from the same little hollow in West Virginia, and so it's all in that Franklin Cemetery. And I talked to Mr. McLeod, who's kind of the caretaker there, and he was talking about all the Yeagers and things like that. And it was just so it was like it filled in a whole lot of the little blanks that as you go through Ancestry.com and all the other little things to figure out who you are, where you're from,
right.
And the number of marriages and number of kids. General Yeager's grandfather, there were 23 kids in that family.
Wow.
And there was like 3 marriages, but 23 kids. So there's all kinds of different stepchildren and stepbrothers and things like that. And I've talked to Victoria on several occasions, or text Victoria, and they had published a request about one of Chuck Yeager's uncles. He had died in the war, in World War II, and Victoria was looking for some information for the general. Well, in my Googling skills, I found his grave. It's in Normandy. And he was killed on, what the general wanted to know was he flying cover that day that he was on the ground? He died in the last few days of World War II. And I found a picture of his grave in Normandy on Google, just looking through and going through. And I wrote the Herald Dispatch to see if they could find an obituary or something, but you have to have certain dates and things to find that. And and come to find out, in World War II, somebody gets killed, it may be months or so before they ever give an obituary back. So his name was Richard Sizemore, and he was from Hamlin, and it was just one of the last few days of the war, and he was fatally wounded, and at least it gave some closure to that for the general. So I was happy to do that for him. So.
There's certainly, I mean, you talk about legacy in this family. It's there. I mean, it really is. And Gary, you talked to me about something, and I found this so interesting. I mean, we talk about the industry itself, and it's a special type of industry when we're talking about air and planes and just, his work in this industry. But you said even today that other pilots that you talk with and those that are in this industry, that you kind of call them, that they have Chuck Yeagerisms. I like the way that you said that. And they almost kind of shape the way they talk around some of the things that he said.
Oh, yes. I mean, even when you're sitting in the back of the airplane and you're just I still look out the window. I don't care. I'm not reading the paper. I'm looking out the window. I'm watching the ground, trying to figure out just where the heck I am. But I'm the world's worst passenger. That landing's a little too fast. That landing's a little. He waited too long to put the gear up. But you hear them. I mean, folks, we're probably going to hit a few bumps, and this airplane's going all over the sky. We're going to have a few bumps. It's going to get a little wobbly up here, and that's a Chuck Yeagerism. Nothing's really bad. And then, but little things that go on like that are, it's always a Southern drawl to it. Well, folks, it's just going to be a little bit bumpy up here, and we'll be. But those were all things that were kind of being accredited to General Yeager back when he was doing his test pilot thing, and it was, and being being an ex-maintenance guy, and that's how he got in the Air Force, not as a pilot. He went in as a maintenance guy because his father was a water well driller back in Hamlin, and the general would go out and help him maintain the pumps and the drilling equipment and things like that. So he had a mechanical aptitude, and so he went in as a mechanic. And he tells the story, and he'll tell you anything you read. First time he took a flight in an airplane, he got sick, threw up. So those are things that happen. I mean, my first airplane ride was in Chesapeake, Ohio. I got what we would call today a dollar ride. My dad got together $10, and I got to go up and go down the Chesapeake River, down to someplace, and we turned back around, came back up to the river, and we landed. That was my first ride. I was hooked. I was hooked right there. And again, just because I'd seen pictures of Chuck Yeager and doing all this other stuff, everybody is familiar with Chuck Yeager. I've gotten, just since he's passed away, I've gotten emails and texts from people who, I met Chuck Yeager, or I met the general. I met Chuck Yeager in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, at a experimental airplane. He is such a crusty old whatever word they wanted to use, but I loved him. He's a fighter pilot. He's a guy who you want on your wing if you have to go into battle. So and then I had another lady who's a friend of mine sent me a note and said her dad was on his maintenance crew in Pakistan or somewhere when he was flying F-100s, and so everybody somehow is connected and has a Chuck Yeager story, and some of them he just really didn't want to talk to somebody someday, and he would just tell them go away. But the man, the legend. I mean, that's all you can say. He's just the legend.
It's a good word to describe him. And I mean, we talk about 97 years. I mean, a life well lived, a life of service. And like I said, just the awards and the accolades that he has racked up over the years. I mean, it is amazing. And Gary, as somebody, you're a West Virginia native, and as somebody who has grown up here, I said, everywhere you drive, somewhere you go, there's probably a nameplate or something that is going to remind you of Chuck Yeager and his work, and the fact that he came from humble beginnings in West Virginia, this very small town. But I want to ask you, and I could sit here and talk with you for hours about him and about the legacy that he leaves behind. But for future generations who are going to learn about him and are going to read about him and will be able to look back and hear about all that he has done, what would you want them to know? What is the one thing that just sticks out in your mind that you, as Gary Yeager, a relative of General Chuck Yeager, could tell them? What sticks out to you most?
The fact that you can come from humble beginnings and be whatever it is that you want to be. You have to take advantage of the opportunities. An opportunity, there's risk in opportunity, but a lot of people will sit back and they will mull over an opportunity and it's gone. He took advantage of every opportunity that was handed him, and he took it. And I've kind of done that in my life. I mean, there's an opportunity, and I took it. Some of them I probably shouldn't have had, but there was an opportunity, and I was able to go into the Air Force, fly jets. I had a very successful insurance career, and I had a very successful airline career. And now I'm retired in Phoenix, Arizona, enjoying the sunshine. And my golf game sucks, but I'm still considering myself successful because I took his advice and I took the advantage of the opportunities. And there's so many out there.
Well, and Gary, as we honor his life and his legacy, there are going to be so many dignitaries, and there are so many that knew General Yeager over the years, and I love that you said sometimes he was a little stern, and maybe his personality was a little bit difficult to understand. It was a little interesting. You know, I love that you summed it up in one word, and you said he was a legend. When you see and you hear from all of those, and I know you even said that you've had conversations with others who knew him well, and you're able to reflect on that. I mean, what does that mean to you? And I know you said it was a little bit difficult maybe to live up to that Yeager name and that Yeager legacy just because you were in this lineage of General Yeager. But what does it mean to you to be able to say that and to be able to tell others about him and share in those stories about just his legacy in general?
Well, that in itself is motivation. I mean, some people are motivated by money. Some people motivated by fame. I just was motivated to where I wanted. If I talked to him tomorrow, what would I say? Would he be proud? Would he call me some kind of dummy? No. He was that's probably what I would have done. That's the big thing. That's probably what I would have done. And that is the greatest thing he could have ever said to me. That's probably that's how I would have handled it. I went, oh, okay. And never had that opportunity, but I know in the back of my mind that that's probably what he would have done. And grab an opportunity, take it, do the best you can at it, and when it all starts spinning out of control, bail out.
Gary, and I love to, because I like to hear all of the inside stories as to General Yeager and some of the things that he did. And I even notice when it comes to the background that you've chosen here for this interview, even the naming of some of the planes have some meaning as to why he did this and why the name. Do you know a little bit about some of those inside stories, maybe some of the inside scoops as to some of those names?
Yeah. Well, Glamorous Glennis. There was Glamorous Glennis. He put on a P-51 back when he was flying in Europe in World War II. Glennis was his wife. She passed away, I think it was 1990. So, and she was pretty much, she ran the show. She was like any military family. When dad's gone, the military mom has a responsibility. She is mom, dad, bank, credit bureau. She is everything when it comes to that. And she handled that in such a manner that, she was, I think Chuck Yeager said she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Met her at a dance. She was at a USO dance when they met, and he just fell head over heels. And so he named just about all, I think all of his airplanes were named Glamorous Glennis. I think he had Glamorous Glennis 1 was the first P-51, and that one crashed or something. And then he had Glamorous Glennis 2. Well, when the X-1 came out, he had Glamorous Glennis on that one. And she was the glue that held it all together when it got to someone who had to be pushing the edge of the envelope. As a matter of fact, I think in the movie Right Stuff, Barbara Hershey played Glennis, and Sam Shepard played Chuck Yeager. And I hate to say it, but when I have to leave the house today, and I go out and I like to run. I'm a runner. I run 5K races. I run 10K races. And when I get ready to leave, I tell my wife, I'll be right back. And that's what Chuck Yeager told Glennis when he went out to go break the sound barrier. I'll just be right back. Okay. So, and that's kind of a thing that I do as I think as a legacy, as a salute to General Yeager. I'll be right back, knowing that They might not be right back.
Right.
So I think that's and anybody who's ever seen the movie Right Stuff, go look at it again. Yeah, it's about astronauts and things like that. But the first part of it, when Chuck Yeager is breaking the sound barrier, and when you watch the movie, Chuck Yeager's in that movie. He plays Fred, the bartender, and that's so funny just to see him. You want to drink a whiskey, boy? You know, right. In that West Virginia drawl. I just roll on the floor when I see that, because I know he probably took about a half dozen takes to get it just the way he wanted, not the directors, right. The way he wanted it.
Well, and Gary, you talk about the right stuff. That was something we always heard about General Yeager. Was you used the word legend, and everybody always said he had the right stuff. And you know, as we pay one final tribute, and in a sense, maybe we do a final salute to him. Just hearing these stories from you, like I said, I could talk to you for hours on end about all of the memories that you have, and I know your dad has fond memories, and we even saw in the video I was playing some pictures of your dad with him alongside him when they had the ceremony to kind of mark the anniversary of him breaking the sound barrier. You have so many wonderful stories, and you share such great perspective. And it's been such a joy to have you here with us to share those memories. And I know we're going to hear so many more of these stories as we pay tribute and we honor the life and the legacy of General Chuck Yeager. Gary, it was great to have you with us. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know, like you said, you're out in Arizona, and it's a little bit ahead of time here for you. I know a little bit of a different time zone, but we certainly appreciate you joining us and talking about those memories and sharing those with our viewers. They're so special.
Anytime. I mean, if there's anything other than I enjoy about talking about myself, it's General Yeager. So
well, and I know that,
and I appreciate you. I appreciate you even inviting me. This has just been so much fun.
Well, and I know we are going to continue to talk about him in the years to come.
Closure, yes, it's closure. I didn't know how I was going to honor him, but now, you know, this does it great for me, and I appreciate it.
Well, Gary, again,
I know our family does. Our family does.
I know that we appreciate you joining us to talk about him and to share, like I said, some inside perspective and to share all of those fond memories that you have and how he, in a sense, helped to shape a lot of your life and a lot of your family's life. So thank you so much, Gary, for taking the time. Appreciate you. And, you know, I know you were even saying you're looking forward to the coverage of being able to watch along as we pay tribute and we honor General Chuck Yeager and the work and the legacy he leaves behind here in West Virginia, and certainly leaves behind, I think, across the entire nation and in a lot of parts of our world.
Yeah. Well, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to think about the funniest story I ever heard in about an hour from now. And I'm going to say, what did I say?
Well, that's okay. Give me a call.
I will. That's all right. I will, Taylor.
Give me a call and we'll still talk about it. So, Gary, again, thank you so much for talking with us about General Chuck Yeager and your relationship with him. It was great to have you, a joy to have you here with us on our program. Thank you so much.
Goodbye. Thank you, guys.
You take care. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, everyone. Gary Yeager joining us here all the way from Arizona to talk about his relationship with his relative, General Chuck Yeager. When we talk about the life and the legacy, I know I mentioned he has a resume that is very lengthy, but we talk about General Yeager and the legacy he leaves behind in West Virginia. Of course, you know, a United States Air Force officer and the first pilot in history confirmed to break the sound barrier. Just a few of the accolades that he has racked up over the years. And we're going to be taking a look at his life and his legacy here on WSAZ, especially as we go into Friday when that ceremony is expected to take place, that celebration of life ceremony. It's expected to begin at about noon at the Charleston Coliseum and Convention Center. And we do know at least one big name, several dignitaries expected to attend this event. And one of them, Vice President Mike Pence, that confirmed through his office that he is going to be in attendance for that ceremony. We're going to have special coverage for you right here on WSAZ. You can stay tuned with us throughout the day. Our coverage will begin in our newscast right around time for that ceremony. We will carry it for you in its entirety in our newscast. Also on our social media platforms, you can watch along with us on WSAZ.com and the WSAZ app. And if you're wanting to watch along with this interview again with Gary Yeager, Chuck Yeager's relative, a West Virginia native, talking about so many fond memories of General Yeager and how he kind of helped to shape his path in life. We're going to post it for you online so you can see that again. Also, this will be a part of our coverage as well as we take a look and we honor General Chuck Yeager, of course, passing away in December at the age of 97. But over the years, racking up a lot of different awards and leaving behind certainly a lasting legacy that will continue on in the years to come. And we're very honored here at WSAZ to be taking part in this event and to be able to bring you that coverage. So stay tuned with us as we honor General Chuck Yeager here on WSAZ. The ceremony itself expected to begin at about noon on Friday. And again, if you would like to watch this interview, we'll have it posted for you on WSAZ.com. Thanks so much for joining us today, everyone. Have a great day.